Hi everyone, this is Glenda Ganzon and welcome to my Human Anatomy and Physiology class. And for today's video, I'm going to introduce to you the types of tissues and membranes. So stay tuned. Our body contains at least 200 distinct cell types, and this cell contains essentially the same internal structures, yet they vary enormously in shape and functions. The different types of cells are not randomly distributed throughout the body, rather, they occur in organized layers, a level of organization referred to as tissue. So the micrograph that opens the tissue level of organization shows high degree of organization among different types of cells in the tissue of the cervix. So you can now see how that organization breaks down when cancer takes over the regular mitotic functioning of a cell. So the variety in shape reflects the many different roles of the cells fulfill in your body. The human body starts as a single cell at fertilization, and as this fertilized egg divides, it gives rise to a trillions of cells, and each built from the same blueprint, but organizing into tissues and becoming irreversibly committed to a developmental pathway. The term tissue is used to describe a group of cells found together in the body. So the cells within a tissue share common embryonic origin. Microscopic observation reveals that the cells in the tissue share morphological features and are arranged in an orderly pattern that achieves the tissue's functions. So from the evolutionary perspective, tissue appear in more complex organisms. For example, multicellular protists, ancient eukaryotes, do not have cells organized into tissues. Although there are many types of cells in the human body, they are organized into four broad categories of tissues. The first is epithelial, the second is connective tissue, the third is muscle tissue, and the last one is the nervous tissue. And each of these categories is characterized by a specific function that contribute to the overall health and maintenance of the body. And a disruption of the structure is a sign of injury or disease. Such changes can be detected through histology, the microscopic study of tissue appearance, organization, and functions. So let me introduce to you the four types of tissues. The first one is the epithelial tissue, and this is also referred to as the epithelium. Epithelium refers to the sheets of cells that cover exterior surfaces of the body, lines internal cavities and passageways, and form certain glands. The second type of tissue is the connective tissue, and as its name implies, binds the cell and organs of the body together and function in the protection, support, and integration of all parts of the body. The third type of tissue is the muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is excitable, responding to stimulation and contracting to provide movement, and occurs as three major types. The first one is skeletal, or what we call as the voluntary muscle. The second one is the smooth muscle, and the third one is the cardiac muscle in the heart. And the fourth type of the tissue is the nervous tissue, and it is also excitable because it allows the propagation of the electrochemical signals in the form of the nerve impulses that communicate between different regions of the body. And the next level of organization is the organ, where several types of tissues come together to form a working unit. Just as knowing the structure and function of cells help you in your study of tissues, knowledge of these tissues will help you understand how organs function. At this point, I would like to discuss the embryonic origin of tissues. So the zygote or fertilized egg is a single cell formed by fusion of an egg and sperm. And after fertilization, the zygote gives rise to a rapid mitotic cycles, generating many cells to form the embryo. So the first embryonic cells generated have the ability to differentiate into any type of cell in the body, and as such, it is called the totipotent. So this means each has the capacity to divide, differentiate, and develop into new organism. So as cell proliferation progresses, there are three major cell lineages are established within the embryo, and each of these lineages of embryonic cells form the distinct germ layers from which all of the tissues and organs of the human body eventually form. Each germ layer is identified by its relative position, and they are the ectoderm. Ecto means outer. The second one is the mesoderm. Meso means the middle, and the third one is the endoderm, and endo means inner. And our last topic for this video is the tissue membrane. So what is a tissue membrane? A tissue membrane is a thin layer or sheet of cells that covers the outside of the body. For example, the skin. The organ, for example, pericardium, internal passageways that lead to the exterior of the body. For example, the abdominal mesenteries, and the lining of the movable joint cavities. So there are two basic types of tissue membranes. One is the connective tissue, and the other one is the epithelial membranes. So may I discuss the first type of tissue membrane, which is the connective tissue. So the connective tissue membrane is formed solely from connective tissue, and these membranes encapsulate organs such as the kidneys and the line of our movable joints. A synovial membrane is a type of connective tissue membrane that lines the cavity of freely movable joint. For example, synovial membranes surround the joints of the shoulder, elbow, and knee. Fibroblasts in the inner layer of the synovial membrane release hyaluronan. I'll repeat, it releases hyaluronan into the joint cavity. And the hyaluronan effectively traps available water to form the synovial fluid. So a natural lubricant that enables the bones of a joint to move freely against one another without much friction. So this synovial fluid readily exchanges water and nutrients with blood, as do all the body fluids. And the second type of tissue membrane is the epithelial membrane. So what is the epithelial membrane? The epithelial membrane is composed of epithelium attached to a layer of connective tissue, for example, your skin. So the mucous membrane is also composite of connective and epithelial tissues, sometimes called mucosae, and these epithelial membranes line the body cavities and hollow passageways that open to the external environment. And these include the digestive, respiratory, excretory, and reproductive tracts. So mucus produced by the epithelial exocrine glands covers the epithelial layer, and the underlying connective tissue is called the lamina propria. So literally, it means own layer, and it helps support the fragile epithelial layer. A serous membrane is an epithelial membrane composed of mesodermally derived epithelium called the mesothelium that is supported by connective tissue, and these membranes line the coelomic cavities of the body, that is, those cavities that do not open to the outside, and they cover the organ located within those cavities. And they are essentially membranous bags with mesothelium lining the inside and connective tissue on the outside. So serous fluid secreted by the cells of the squamous mesothelium lubricates the membrane and reduces abrasion and friction between organs. Also, serous membranes are identified according to locations. There are 3 serous membranes line the thoracic cavity, and the 2 pleura that cover the lungs, and the pericardium that covers the heart. A fourth, the peritoneum is the serous membrane in the abdominal cavity that covers abdominal organs and forms double sheets of mesenteries that suspend many of the digestive organs. And the skin is an epithelial membrane, also called as the cutaneous membrane, and it is a stratified squamous epithelial membrane resting on the top of connective tissue. And the apical surface of this membrane is exposed to the external environment, and it is covered with dead keratinized cells that help protect the body from desiccation and pathogens. So this ends my discussion about the different types of tissues and the tissue membrane. And if you have any question, please write it in the comment section down below, and I'll be glad to answer them all. And once again, I would like to thank you all for watching this video and for listening to my discussion. Until my next video, bye everyone!